Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Amanda Bakes. So today we are making bread, and I have my amazing dad here with me because he makes this bread for us all the time, and so I thought it'd be fun to make it here. So let's get this video started. Okay, so I've already pre-measured out most of the ingredients. So you need...
Alright, so there's one important thing that you have to do here. Is the first ingredient is going to be water. You need 2 1/4 cups of water. You want it nice and warm, but not too hot. If you get it too hot, it's going to actually hurt the yeast. Nice and warm will help the yeast react and start to grow. So we want 2 1/4 cups of nice warm water.
And then next you need the yeast.
So I'm going to get the water.
Okay, so while my dad is getting the water, you need 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of yeast, and 3/4 of a tablespoon of salt. And then you need 6 cups of flour, and you can put that in a bowl.
We're not going to put that in yet.
Yeah, so put that in a bowl to the side, and then we've got the water in the stand mixer.
So what you want to do with the water is you want to put the yeast in with the water.
So here I have the yeast.
It's yeasty. And then you're going to put the salt in with the water and yeast.
And here's the salt.
It's salty. And they're going to want to put the oil in with it as well.
Okay, so we need canola oil. We need canola oil, and we need
2 tablespoons.
Right. Okay, so now we have 2 tablespoons of canola oil, and we're going to add that with the stand mixer with the other ingredients.
It's oily. And then we're going to add the sugar.
So here we have 2 tablespoons of sugar.
You want to guess? It's sugary.
So there we have our ingredients.
You're going to use a small little hand whisk to mix it up. What this is going to do, it's going to allow the yeast to start working. And you're going to want to look for kind of a nice yeasty smell. You probably want to mix this and let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes to really get that yeast started going. So, while she's mixing, I will call out my shirt. It's Adidas. Not a sponsor yet. Alright, so we're going to let that sit for about 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll go to that point.
Okay, so we have about 2 minutes left on the clock that we're going to let the stand mixer mixture sit. So while we're waiting, make sure you go down below and hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more baking videos. Okay, so it's been about 5 or 10 minutes, so now we're going to start doing stuff with the mixture.
Alright, so first thing you want to do is we've got our flour here. It's floury, but not the smelly floury like outside, but the one you cook with. So you're going to take just a little tiny bit and put it in just a cup, and you're going to put it on your cutting board because we're going to need that in just a minute. Then you're going to take your bread hook on your bread machine, or we're using a stand mixer, actually not a bread machine. So you're going to put that in the stand mixer, which is off camera, but trust me, it's happening. All right, then you're going to lock your stand mixer. All right, and you're going to put it on low to start with. And you're going to very slowly start putting flour in and let it start to mix together. Now I'm cameraman too. How's that? Is that good? You're going to turn up the speed just a couple notches now. Let it start mixing together. Alright, and just go ahead and continue to put the flour in there. Eventually it's going to start coming together and making a nice dough ball. Alright, once you get close to the end in the flour bowl, you can just dump the rest of the flour in. Okay? Now you're going to let that mix. Maybe turn up the speed just a little bit. I like to tap the sides of the mixing bowl and get the flour off the side. You can see that that's starting to make a nice dough ball. And that's what we want. You want all that flour and water and everything to start to stick together. Once it starts sticking together, which we're getting close to here, we're going to stop the mixer and pull it out onto the cutting board, which is probably right about now. It's going to be sticky, but that's okay. Sticky never hurt anybody. All right. I'm going to wash my hands.
So now we're going to pull out all the bread dough from the bowl and put it on the cutting board with the flour.
It's going to be pretty sticky.
As you can see, my hands are covered in it already.
So what I've found that helps is once you get it on the cutting board, we add a little flour underneath it. And we're going to put a little flour on top here. Just kind of sprinkle it over the top. That's going to help you as you start to knead it. And you're going to get it more on your fingers so you don't have to pull it all off your fingers. Now, once you get it all out, you're just going to start mixing it together with your hands. Like it's some crazy brain science experiment. That flour will help it start to stick together. You want to kind of just work it all in. You're helping to activate that yeast and let it start rising here, hopefully. If it gets too sticky, you can just add a little bit of flour. Nice and sticky. So you'll notice now it's starting to come together. You get a nice floury look on the outside. Amanda's going to try and work some of that off of her fingers now down into the dough. Don't worry, she washed her hands really good before we started.
I forgot to take my ring off before we started, but for anyone trying this at home, you might want to take off any jewelry that you have on your hands because it'll get covered in bread dough.
And at the least, make sure you come out with as much jewelry as you went in with. All right. So once you get here, I'm going to take over here for just a second, if that's all right, Amanda.
Wash this up.
So you'll see now that it's starting to come together, and we're just going to kind of work it. And what I've usually done is I'll take the dough and kind of flip it over and then push it down with my palm. And then rotate it and then push it down. And it's still just a tad bit sticky. Not a little bit sticky, but I wanted a little more flour in here. So I'm just going to work that flour in. Get into a nice consistency now. And I continue to just push down with the palm, flip, rotate, and you're going to kind of work it in. This is kneading the dough. Alright. Once it gets pretty well mixed in, it's just a little bit sticky, but not where it's really sticking to your fingers. Then it comes to your first of a couple stopping spots. And this is where you want to let it rest. And this is where the yeast is going to really start working, and your dough is going to expand as the yeast works. So I'll just fold it over a couple times like this. And I like to make like a nice little mound like this. And then we're going to let it sit. What I'll typically do is get a nice clean cotton towel and cover it. And you're going to want to let this sit probably about 45 minutes to an hour. And then you're going to want to come back and knead it again and probably let it sit another half hour or so. So you're looking about an hour and a half total raising time.
Okay, so welcome back. We've waited the time to let it rise. So now we're going to put it in the pan. So we have these little mini glass pans for bread. So for the unveiling.
Yep, and so in the glass pan we've just got some parchment paper. It helps with the cleanup, so make sure the bread comes out nice and clean. So, the bread has increased in size, which you want it to rise, and that starts getting that gluten working within the bread. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take our dough using a dough cutter. I don't know if that's the technical term, but that's what I call it. And we're going to just basically cut this dough in half. Now it really looks like a brain. Okay. And you're going to take the two halves and knead them around a little bit. Amanda's going to knead that one, and I knead this one. What's that texture feel like, Amanda?
It's kind of squishy.
Kind of squishy.
It's not sticky anymore.
Okay. You're basically going to just kind of work this around. I try and get a nice smooth top as much as I can. And I'm going for a little, what looks like a little mini loaf, and about the size of length as much as I can for the bread pan. And then we're just going to set that in on top of the parchment paper. All right, now at this point, you want to go ahead and let it rise about another 30 minutes, and then it's going to be ready to go into the oven.
Okay, so we are back. We've been letting the dough rise in the pans. So now I'm going to take the sheet off. Ready?
Rise! Oh, look at it.
So here are the pans with the dough. It's risen quite a bit.
Glorious.
So now we're going to put them in the oven. As soon as it preheats, you want to preheat the oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we're going to cook it for 25 to 30 minutes.
Yep, and what you want to look for is when it gets nice and golden brown on top, that's usually when you're done.
So we'll come back when the oven preheats. Okay, so now we have our loaves. The oven's preheated to 375. So we're going to put them in. And these pans are small enough that you can just put them in the oven side by side. Here's the second one. So 25 to 30 minutes, so we'll put it in for 25 and see where it's at then. So, I've already lined, and we'll be back then. Welcome back, guys. It's been 25 minutes that they've been baking in the oven, and I just took them out, and they're looking really good. So we're going to let it cool for a little bit before we try to take them out and cut into them.
All right, so Amanda's taking the bread out of the oven. And what you want to do is, after you get out of the oven, you want to put it on a cooling rack. So we let it cool a little bit so these pans aren't hot anymore. And we're just going to set it aside. And we probably should have done this right away, but there you go. Pops right out. Looks gorgeous. We're going to pop this one out. And we'll leave them on the cooling rack here to cool completely. And then you're going to want to store them in a bread bag and enjoy, because they look fantastic.
And we've always eaten them with like putting a little bit of jam or butter on them, and they're really good. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and that if you made the bread that it turned out good. So thank you to my dad for being in this video with me. He's an expert on bread making. So now that the video is over, make sure and go down and like this video and subscribe to my channel for more baking videos. I'll be posting one every Saturday, so stay tuned.